So I'd like to just speak a bit about what happened in me intervening 30 years and do the best I can doing that. The 1980s certainly verified our prediction as to the intensity of the repression. And we, for a period of time, between 1982 and 1988, actually published in protective anonymity. A number of us left the country or went back to university to get requalified, or in some other way moved to escape the political and economic repression of the Reagan-Bush years. But the wisdom we were originally given to transport to the future still centered on work and the struggle against it. Okay? And this is the source of the first period, I think, of Midnight Notes. Work was a manifold field extending. We had this idea that work was a manifold field extending throughout society, with much of it unwaged. Any attempted isolation of work in a particular locale distorted it, since work is to be found in the home, the transport of workers, as well as in prisons and other places. The worker and the working class will no longer be identified with wage workers who wear a watch and are protected by a union contract. Housewives, slaves, drug runners, cash crop peasants, prisoners are all part of this working class, since their work creates value. We had to stretch, as Fanon said, Marxist concepts of labor and labor power to achieve this result. But along with this stretching of work is also a widening of the area of struggle against work. This vision came, at least to me, as a sort of, the way I think in the past the notion of universal gravitation hit some earlier minds. I suddenly began to see the connection between all parts of my life, from the doorknobs to the bricks in the side of the house. And maybe others of you have had that. But, and we applied this wisdom in a variety of ways. I was most involved in the analysis of the energy crisis from this perspective. We also carried on an ongoing critique of autonomists like Tony Neill, who were arguing that capital had gone beyond work, and that was the source of the crisis of the 1970s. We argued that far from being liberated from labor, the increasing computerization of production requires an ever-increasing exploitation of agricultural, manufacturing, and reproductive labor. We insisted on the relevance of Marxist categories, class, surplus value, work, to understanding of capital, while Negri and his collaborators stretched these categories beyond their limits, as far as we were concerned. There was a hardness, perhaps, in our project in the 1980s. Almost we carried a chip on our shoulders, I think, with our class war uber alles stance. Okay? But the ironic spirit of struggle can undo obdurate things. For the period of repression, we all were forced to experience new elements of the class. In my case, it was Nigeria that first enveloped me like a huge, wet warmth. It took a while for me to recover and begin to ask, where is the class struggle here in Nigeria? The answer that eventually came was a surprise. The commons still existed in Nigeria and made it possible for many to have access to land and to eat who are outside the wage labor market, and for many wage workers on strike to support them. This made it possible. Much of the class struggle I observed was a struggle against police, the oil companies, the army, in order to prevent the enclosure of agricultural village commons. In fact, increasingly I began to see structural adjustment and neoliberalism, both the theory and practice, as a direct attack on the remaining commons from pre-capitalist times and the new commons that were created by worker struggles, including our famous social and economic rights. On returning to the United States in '87 and joining with old and new comrades, we began to see actually this insight was being shared by many. And all this collective work went into the writing of the new enclosures and our involvement with the anti-Iraq war movement, and led to a number of pamphlets and productions and so on. And I'd like to just finish up and my comments here, because I gave you the two kind of, I think, important themes for me of this work of 30 years, but it's this brings me to today. I don't know about all of you, but I would want a site of discussion and debate, and the creation of a political perspective that can be expressed in a journal. This is I know this is what I lack at this point. I think I need a site that allows for this continuing discussion that we are engaged in, and a way of regularly intervening and expressing a political concept of what's happening today. I want Midnight Notes either in that name or some future project that is continuous with Midnight Notes, with this way of beginning to see enclosures work and the struggle against them as the motive force for the creation of a new society. And so therefore, in our discussions today, I know I will be very interested to hear about your views about what the work of Midnight Notes can lead to. And so, my dear comrades, I look forward to this, what's going to result from it. So thank you very much.
All right, so I'll see if I can keep it to 10 minutes. To begin with, I'd just like to say it's wonderful to be here. Oh, okay. I'm John Willshire-Carerra, and I was the youngest member of the crew when we first started, I believe. I'm not anymore. There are a lot more people younger than me, and that makes me feel older sometimes, which is not good, but also makes me feel very happy. And that's what I wanted to start off by saying, was that it's great to see all of you here today. I mean, it makes me feel like maybe we have touched some people's lives, either ourselves individually, because a lot of people know people here, and I've mentioned people here many times, and as a collective. But as a collective, for me, it's not only this collective that's putting out the information and trying to talk to people, but for me, and I think for all of us, it's a very close collective. It's a close collective. And as far as I'm concerned, and I said this as we were organizing our birthday, as far as I'm our anniversary or whatever it is, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to know each other and love each other till we die. So as a group, I think we're very close, and we try to live our politics, the politics of the commons that we developed, in a very real way. Sometimes we're too far away from each other. Sometimes we're like families, we quarrel, but I think at the end of the day, we all love each other and we're very much part of here. So thank you for being here. Monty said a lot of things that I sort of wanted to touch on, so I'm not going to do that. George obviously led the foundation for who we are, so I'm going to try to make a couple of other comments. To begin with, after I joined Midnight Notes, in fact, I joined Midnight Notes in great part because of this other person by the name of Willshire-Carerra, who I never will forget, and I think a lot of us remember. He's somebody who, as far as I was concerned, was, and Nancy's my partner, and Nancy and I knew them very well, they answered Maria. They had escaped from Chile in '73, and I think they barely escaped with their lives. And there were people who had a lot to say and they were powerful people, they were wonderful people. And it was through I was studying political economy at the economics department at UMass at the time. It was an European department. They've gone on with their lives, and I've gone a different way. And part of the main reason I split ways was because I met Leo, and through Leo I met George, and through those discussions I ended up realizing I was in the same place Monty said, which is that the wrong questions were being asked. I was being asked to do work of, I wanted to be a development economist. I thought I was going to go back to Latin America because I'm actually from the Andes, I'm Andean. I thought I was going to go back to Latin America and lead the socialist development project or something. I realized this is not what I wanted. I mean, the discussions around work made me realize that if anything, I was just planning more work for people down there and bringing them into the capitalist system. So I said, this wasn't going to work. So Midnight Notes really affected my life in that sense. It changed my course. And part of that, part of the And I also have to give acknowledgement to Nancy, who changed my life too, because I was involved in a lot of struggles with her. And between all those things, I ended up coming down this path.